Here we are at Spero Island.
Our adventure to the Spero River wilderness started with a World Heritage Tours trip to Spero Island. As soon as we had jumped into the pack rafts, it began to rain.
Wow.
A pod of
Don't knock
dolphins
me out.
located us in progress, which was the highlight of our day. Although we had many more rain squalls, we had minimal headwinds, which enabled us to raft about 17 k's all the way into Birch's Inlet in good time.
Here we are in the morning, second day.
We were pleased to have stayed in the Birch's Inlet hut for the rainy night before our 11 k's down the low Rocky Point track, which was relatively boring but fast. It took us about 2.5 hours before we turned off the four-wheel drive track to reach the Spero River Valley. Progress was easy given the numerous fires which had reduced the scrub. We had to walk about 4 k's to the river before the start of the Spero River Gorge, where we pumped up our rafts. Our progress was very slow due to the low water levels. The Spero Gorge is absolutely delightful and beautiful. Although only about 2 kilometres in length, it took us most of the afternoon navigating the serene pools, contrasted by the strongly tannin coloured water with the white rocks. The rainforest surrounding this stunning section of the river was unique in terms of the types of plants and different variety. The pools were also absolutely gorgeous. We popped out of the rainforest of the gorge into the wider meandering nature of the river, with more white rocks with trickle rapids. We made camp soon after at an open sunny side of the wide bend of the Spero River. It had taken about 3 hours to travel 2 kilometres, but an absolute delight to take it so slowly and take in the beauty of the gorge. The morning of day 3 dawned rather cold with a mist on the river. Normally it would take about a day to get to the coast, but not with so many obstacles and a severe lack of water. It made progress slow with many portages dragging and floating our rafts. This meant we were out of our rafts as much as we were on the water. Even though it was really hard work to do all the physical effort, it was still lots to see and truly appreciate. I was surprised at the number of flowering leatherwoods, giving me the confidence about another good honey season.
It's not the lack of water.
If it wasn't for the lack of water scraping most rapids, it ended up being the big log jams. We encountered 3 big ones of them around about lunchtime, none who had been expected. We started to see some cut off Huon Pine logs as well. The highlight of the day for me was to see a common kingfisher in his glowing and beautiful colours. He was relatively tame, so I was able to film him, which was fantastic.
That's a nice bit of Huon Pine, look at that.
By then we had encountered our first Huon Pines, one of the main reasons for our pack rafting the Spero River wilderness. Apart from the normal drooping nature of Huon Pines on the banks of the river, we saw some very special specimens, some very big. We wondered why there were not more stumps on the Huon Pines taken by the Nelsons in the 1930s.
See if we can find remnants of the Nielsen hut, see what we can find.
After a longish day, we camped out just down from the remnants of the Nelson Piners camp, which we found easily. It was very satisfying to follow and appreciate the history of the Piners of the 1930s.
There's some tin. That's a Huon Pine shingle maybe, or the corner post. Oh, look at that. That's as hard as a rock. That's a metal plate.
Day 4 started a little bit wet.
Just pumping up the boats.
But even though we had more tributaries joining into the Spero, the going was still the same, slow and tedious. We were keen to see the giant Huon Pine that Grant Dixon had told me about.
Wow.
It was easily the biggest and tallest Huon Pine I'd ever seen, even comparing that to the ones we saw in the Lagos Tucanas Huon Pine Reserve on the Denison River. The diameter was easily 2 metres thick, which we surmised would be around 1500 years old. Soon after that we were on the lower Spero
And I see some blue sky.
and we reached Spero Bay on the coast. We found more evidence of another Piners camp from the 1930s. During lunch we dried off our rafts, packed up and ventured north along Spero Bay to White Horses Beach, where we found lots of abandoned Huon Pines from the 1930s that they couldn't get out. We had to get used to our heavy packs again, where our pack rafts added an extra 5 kilograms of weight. But we were distracted by numerous whale bones, pilot whales, and in some instances we surmised sperm whales. Another whale bone. This is what we believe to be the jawbone. Look where the teeth marks. Well, teeth would have been sitting. Oh, okay. How big that is. Find that buoy. We easily found the turn-off from White Horses Beach to take us up to the headland over towards Merrim Beach. Once we got onto the button grass plain, it wasn't easy to find our way. But once we got on top, we saw our beacon, Hibbs Pyramid, an absolute stunning landmark. We are lost. After a bit of scrub bashing, we reached Merrim Beach and headed up towards our camp, which was right opposite Hibbs Pyramid. We had plans to go across the 1 kilometre of water to climb Hibbs Pyramid. As attractive as that option looked from here at sunset, it was to no avail on the next day. The wind and waves were against us, so we decided to set off to Hibbs Bay. We've been told that this was the hardest and scrubbiest section of our trip north towards Gorge Point. We encountered many sharp rocks and snakes, as it were, and lots of scrub later on when we tried to avoid
Good of people to put some
a few
ropes
obstacles and headlands.
Yeah, we're closed. We've come in. Now we've got to go back out. Right. So it's in.
After Entrance Creek, we were told to go up high to the 40-metre contour line.
Heading along, making quite good progress.
While that worked for a little while, we came off too early and hit a whole lot of scrub and afterwards extra coast.
That's that bit done. Doing a bit of jumping and sliding.
The rocks were sharp and gnarly, and going was pretty slow and tough. The geology of this coastline is varied and very interesting to look at and ultimately to get past.
It's Hibbs Beach and Hibbs Bay.
We had designated Hibbs
River
Beach for our lunch spot, where we decided to go off and do a side trip up Hibbs Lagoon, which we could do because we had rafts. We confirmed our decision to go up Hibbs Lagoon at lunch, but after lunch we had this squall of rain and everything was made wet while we were trying to pack up and get ready. The rain was gone as quick as it came, and soon we were on the lagoon enjoying a peaceful afternoon. We had fun floating on the lagoon, which was edged by thick reeds which were hard to get through. We couldn't go up Birch River, so we returned. Day 6 was another beautiful day. Our task was to make the crossing across the river, which was only about 10 metres or so.
Hopefully with a dry arse.
Arse report, still dry. The pack up was quick in the morning sun. We then set off Hibbs Bay and kept on going up the coast. Our progress was reasonably good, even though we had still plenty of rocks to clamber and jump over. But at every corner and every cove there's always something interesting to see, which kept us entertained. Well, about mid-morning we started to see these marsupial lawns. They were well kept by the wombats and wallabies. While easy to walk over, we were starting to wonder why these strips were there. Were the Aboriginals responsible for firing these people? We pondered this interesting question. Then out of the blue we encountered a Tasmanian
coming straight
devil.
towards us.
Not once, but twice. Both came really close up to us. I'd only seen a Tasmanian devil once before, but this time I saw them close up. The second one we saw was a day later, near Modder River. The devil almost touched my leg. As soon as he realised what was there, he scooted away at top pace. There were so many beautiful aspects to the coastline, things to admire, and observe. There was something in every little cove, stretch of coastline, suitable lawn, rock beach, sand beach, wherever. Even though we travelled around 50 k's up the coastal scenery never seemed to amaze us. The variety, the splendour, the differing geology, sights, whether you're on the beach or on the headland, even with the heavy packs on, long distances to cover, there's always something great to look at and to admire. The only downside was to see all the rubbish had been swept up from the sea.
We're about to have lunch.
In most of the bays and beaches, we would find inlets where we would find fresh water and plenty of other things to look at. The inlets got bigger and more varied the further north we got. Lagoon Creek, Nelson River were my favourites. At these places where we made camp, we were able to observe the moods of the weather and sunsets. Another interesting and important and enhancing feature for us was finding a number of middens. We were in awe of the indigenous culture before the 1830s.
This midden, I think it's quite unique.
As we ventured north, the walking was much easier, interspersed with many beaches and dunes. Day 7 from Motto River to Lagoon Creek, we covered close to 20 k's. Once we reached Birthday Creek, we were able to avoid any scrub over the headland via the quad bike track that follows the coast all the way up to Gorge Point. We crossed many creeks along the way, such as Nelson River, Wallow Creek, Albina Creek, and our final campsite at Lagoon Creek. We saw many birds and gulls along the way, and after a while disturbed a seal. The dunes at Lagoon Creek were spectacular. We slept in my new Durston tent in many amazing places, whether on the Spero River or on the coast.
Look at that.
From many of these great campsites we witnessed some excellent sunsets, especially facing the west on the coast. The most spectacular, most memorable sunset was the one that was least expected at Motto River, which was preceded by an electrical storm. Our final highlight was paddling on the water on Macquarie Harbour, watching the sun come up on the final day to provide some spectacular and contrasting scenery to end an epic trip to the Spero River wilderness.